Hi everybody, it's Chef Carol. Here I am back in our nutrition lab at Otay Elementary School in Chula Vista, and today we are working on our stone soup layer number 4 for our Learning at Home lesson suite. So let's take a look at what we have first inside. Remember, I'm going to lift up my lid away from me. See all that steam? Because I don't want it to burn my face. And you see how there's just tiny, tiny little bubbles? That is called simmering. That is what we talked about at the end of the last lesson. I'm actually going to turn my soup off. I just wanted you to take a look at what simmering looks like. And I wanted to show you something that Chef Carol forgot to tell you about soaking the beans. So this is why it's really important to read a recipe. So we're soaking the beans overnight. We added enough water to cover them and about just enough room for our pinky fingers so that we know that we're going to be rehydrating, which means adding water back to the beans. But there's a secret ingredient that we need to add, and that was salt. And we need about a teaspoon of salt. And so while I'm doing this, take a look at Chef Carol's mise en place. She has all of her ingredients and all of her chef tools ready, and she has remembered to wear closed-toe shoes. And I have my imaginary sous chef here with me. Thank you, sous chef, very, very much for being here and assisting me today. I couldn't have done it without you. So, 1 teaspoon of salt. Again, I'm not going to do it over the bowl. Okay, and I'm going to add my salt. And I actually can give that a little bit of a stir. And again, these beans are going to become rehydrated and they'll be ready to use tomorrow. But for now, we're going to put them out of our way. So, who can remember why did we add beans to our recipe? Think for a second. Make 2 mussels. We need them to give us energy in the form of protein. So, first thing we're going to do before we add the next layer is we're going to go ahead and we're going to taste our previous layer. So, might have to let this cool down a little bit. So we're going to be adding today another layer of flavor. And this layer of flavor we're going to add isn't just something that is going to taste good. It's going to feel good on our tongue. It's something sticky. Let's go ahead first and taste this. See how we're doing. Just a little tiny bit. It's very hot, so I got low on it. I'm sure you have your sous chef help you do this. That smells umami. Oh wow, I'm really proud of myself. That is delicious. It's very, very, very good. Okay, but we're ready to add yet another layer. So we have flavor profile A in here. We have, let's go back and we can take a look and see what that looks like. So from flavor profile A, we have a green onion. We added a whole carrot, we added a stalk of celery, we already had garlic in here, we had already added some potatoes the lesson before. Of course, we have our beans in here that have been cooking, and they are actually going to be ready to eat too. And we have some dried basil, we have a pinch of salt, a pinch of pepper, and if you remember, we put in some fresh ginger, and I omitted any of the dried ginger spice because Chef Carol knew that it already had a lot of ginger flavor. But today we're going to add something that's called a starch, and it's sticky, and it is a type of rice called brown rice. Now, even rice has a little bit of protein. It does not have near the same amount as beans do, but it does have a little. And we are going to add this to learn how to make rice today, and I always choose brown rice because it's kind of like eating brown bread. It's kind of has the whole grain. The endosperm and the bran are still attached on the rice. So it's probably my choice of rice, but there are lots of different rices that you can pick. There's white rice, sushi rice, basmati rice, wild rice, Thai rice, arborio rice. So Whatever rice you have at home is the rice that you should use today. I just actually love the flavor of the brown rice also because it has kind of a nutty flavor to it. Not like nutty like this when you're feeling nutty, but almost like eating a nut, but it's not a nut. So we're gonna go ahead, I'm gonna put my cover on my soup. I'm gonna let it sit here because we are gonna learn how to make rice. So here we go. I'm going to need another pot, a nice clean pot, and I'm going to need some rice. Now, do you remember how we took the dried beans and we put them in a strainer and we ran the water over them before they were ready to cook? You may want to do the same thing with the rice. You may also want to rinse your rice. So sometimes I rinse it, sometimes I don't. But today we're not going to rinse the rice. We're just going to use it as it is, so I don't need my colander. But what I do need is a pot and I need water. So let's go back to our recipe. And we are going to talk about something that's called a ratio today. So Chef Carol is looking for her pen. Let's see if we can find one over here. So whenever I'm making rice, if I use 1 cup of rice, I need twice as much water. So 1 cup of rice, I don't need 1 cup of water, I'm gonna need 2 cups of water. And that's called a ratio. I'm gonna write that out. 1 cup of rice and 2 cups of water. And sometimes a ratio looks like this. That means 1 to 2. That is our ratio. Rice, water. So it doesn't really matter if you're using a measuring cup or you're using any other cup. 1 of these, I'll need 2 of these of water. 1 cup of rice, I'll need 2 cups of water. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put my rice, and I'm going to use, how about today? Oh, we'll go ahead and use the cup. I'm going to add 1 cup of brown rice. There we go. I'm going to add it to my pot. Seal this back up again so that it stores for a nice long time. One of the nice things about rice, just like dried beans, is that it's not usually very expensive and it keeps for a very long time, just like the dried kidney beans we use. 1 cup of rice, which means I'm going to need, think for a second, the ratio, 1 cup of rice, 2 cups of water. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add 1, 2, and I'm pretty sure that my recipe also calls for a pinch of salt. So we're going to add a pinch of salt to the rice. I'm going to give this a little bit of a stir, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to take a good look at my recipe because I have a feeling that Chef Carol did not take a really good look last time. I want to make sure that I do this exactly how the recipe says. All right. So with the assistance of my sous chef, my imaginary sous chef, we have all this ready, and now we're ready to turn the heat back on. And what we're looking again is we wanted to come to, we're going to call it a gentle boil. We've learned that when we boil water, we get big bubbles come to the surface. A gentle boil means they're kind of medium big. If you remember, a simmer is when we have tiny, tiny, tiny little bubbles. So we have a gentle boil that's going to come. And what I'm going to do is once it comes to a boil, I'm going to put my lid on with my sous chef, and I'm going to cook the rice for about 45 minutes. It's going to come to a boil first, and then I'm going to turn it down all the way to a simmer so it has tiny bubbles. And when it is finished simmering, what's going to happen is that you're going to see that all of the water will have become absorbed. There's no more water, just beautiful, beautiful rice that's left. And that's how we know that the rice is ready to eat. So very sticky, very starchy, just a tiny bit of protein, but it's going to add a lot of flavor and a lot of texture to our recipe. So let's go ahead and take our cooked rice, put it over here. I'm going to take one of these and put my rice here, make sure it's not warm. I'm going to put my layered soup recipe over here. And now I'm going to go ahead and for my layer number 4, I'm going to add about maybe a cup of cooked rice. So I'm probably going to need a spoon. Let me go ahead with a nice clean one. I'm going to fill up my cup here with about 1 cup of cooked rice. And of course, you can always add a little bit more rice to your soup bowl when you're all done. There we go. So very carefully, I'm going to add my rice to my soup. Set this aside. I'm going to give this a little stir. There we go. So I just want to point out one thing again so we're clear. When I'm making my rice, we're going to actually take this off the heat because I'm going to show you again. In my pot, I had a ratio of 1 cup of rice and 2 cups of water. I'm going to bring it to a gentle boil. If I put the lid on, it's going to boil faster. Make sure you have your sous chef help you. When it starts to boil, let's turn it up. Maybe we can get it to boil while we're standing right here. When it starts to boil and you've got bubbles, I'm going to turn the temperature down to low and let it simmer for almost 45 minutes until the water has absorbed and the rice looks like this. When it's all done and the water has absorbed, I'm going to put the lid back on it. It will help to keep the rice warm. I could also store it in a container in the fridge, and it would be actually ready to add right to our, here we go here, our beautiful soup. So, are you guys ready to taste it? Next session, we're going to go to our stone soup, layer number 5, which is really kind of going to be our final layer. And believe it or not, it's almost all done. Oh, I want to show you one more thing, sorry. So, what if you do not have any dried kidney beans to use? I'm trying to find my sample, but I can't. You could use kidney beans that came right out of a can. Now think, am I going to cook these? They've already been rehydrated and they've already been cooked. And when you open them up, there's some liquid in them. But you know what? You don't have to throw away that liquid. You could add a whole can of beans to your soup as a layer if you did not have dried beans to use. So, see you next layer.